Maybe you've experienced this too. You were watching a video by an independent creator over on YouTube. You didn't go in with any high expectations, but suddenly you find your attention is completely captured and you're feeling things you never quite felt before or only felt a long time ago. You feel like you just watched a masterful movie, but not quite. Maybe the video was just a few minutes long, but it resonated with you on a specific frequency, how these big productions just don't. Why? Why are you feeling this way, and why are we this way? I asked myself the same thing many times, and with every year passing and the art landscape changing, I further understand why this might be the case and where I think all of this is heading. Now, I don't want to bore you with stuff like, oh, Hollywood dominated for years, but now it's the creators' turn, yada yada. We hear that everywhere right now. Independent creators are transitioning to the big screen, but that's not the topic I want to cover at all. I want to speak more about how publishing on these independent channels has transformed how we experience art in the first place. Now, everybody who has grown up on YouTube has known this for the longest time, that this platform can birth some of the coolest ideas ever in existence. Things that just feel very special and made just for the love of the game instead of trying to please everybody. It's so far the greatest and fairest distribution method we've ever seen in history. Now, we could totally argue about the nature of the algorithm and its entire pack of problems, but that's an entirely different topic. Fact is that great ideas can be made and seen today that would never find a traditional market. If it wasn't for YouTube's non-existent barrier of entry, projects like the original Marble Hornets could have never spread the idea of the Slender Man to a global audience. Raka Raka could have never made their R-rated comedy bits, and Corridor Crew would have needed to license all their films about video games up front. These things never fit into a television network. They didn't belong in a TV show or a theatrical release, but they felt perfect in this massive pool of thoughts and ideas that YouTube is. No other medium has this direct connection from artist to viewer. I mean, the invention of the comment section alone, it's such a huge thing, just think about it. Kane Parsons' Backrooms would only be half as fun if it wasn't for such avid people taking apart every little detail and making their own videos on it. It's what people just nowadays call a community, and yes, that has always existed. When people shared similar interests, they found each other, forums existed, but the more middlemen you can cut out, the better and more efficient it becomes. This crucible of people is always doing something, working on things, making art, millions of unique voices all feeding off one another, bouncing around ideas, that eventually something gets made that resonates with more people than any business or corporation could have ever predicted or manufactured. It's this very natural flow of things which is unprecedented. And while some dislike the incredible speed at which YouTube is moving, it's also always ahead of the curve just because of that. And that is what excites us. The new and not done before is most likely just by pure chance because of its many auteurs happening on YouTube. Over these last few years, creative tools have gotten more accessible than ever, most notably the 3D software Blender, which is responsible for one masterpiece after another. But also cameras have gotten cheaper, and editing software like DaVinci Resolve is completely free. And while it also kind of leveled out the playing field, it is a fact that everybody now has technology that 40-50 years ago cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know, back in the 90s they had computers with worse specs than your phone, and they made some pretty good art with it. The only remaining and unchanged factor is one's personal skill and time put in to make something happen. Theoretically, you could as a single person sit down for 30 years and make a full CGI film that would totally match the visual fidelity of anything out in cinemas right now. But my argument isn't that you can do this or even should do this. Most people don't randomly spend 30 years on a project because it's not really sustainable and there's other things to life that are more exciting than your computer screen. But what if I told you that having lower quality than those bigger productions is actually the decisive difference that makes independent art feel so honest? And I'm not saying that lower quality is secretly superior, but rather that being limited to a few options and a few tools can result in works that create a certain kind of emotional space. One of my favorite auteurs, Ian Hubert, likes to call this story space. The idea that a little bit of abstraction or less fidelity actually helps the suspension of disbelief. Like, if you're watching an anime and you're reading the subtitles and somebody says the coolest thing ever, but then you listen to the dub and it just sounds like a guy saying it and it's not nearly as cool. The cleaner it is, the higher res it is, the less stylized it is, the less it's saying, hey, imagine if this thing happened, and more, look at this thing that's actually happening, which is sometimes really cool, but I don't think it's always the best way to get the biggest emotional impact out of storytelling. He uses Twin Peaks as an example, saying the direction, production design, lighting, and also use of analog film back then made the show feel both gorgeous but also slightly not real, which enhanced this heightened reality of the show, which made it so unique even after all these years. Now, looking at Twin Peaks: The Return, a reboot set 25 years later, we get to see a much cleaner and higher resolution version of the same world, and yet it feels vastly different. We as viewers have also matured over these 25 years and now understand that they're setting up an expensive digital camera and there's a really skilled crew behind that lens who are recording this on a film set. Viewers in any genre have gotten a lot smarter. We know the tropes and cliches, we know where classic horror movies place their jump scares. So it's the modern storyteller's responsibility to understand that the audience also has this knowledge and then subvert their expectations based on that. What I'm trying to say is when you go into any movie or watch any show on a well-known streaming service, you go in with a lot more expectations than when you're clicking on a YouTube video. You've read the headlines of this thing costing millions of dollars, and then you look at your overpriced cinema ticket, which also costs $25. Whatever is about to happen on that big screen, it better be worth it. That's the pressure you're subconsciously putting on yourself. With the internet, you're often not expecting anything. You're kinda just in this vast space, but you do know that anything could happen. So when it does happen, it just feels ever more magical. When I was a kid, I played this wonderful game called Pokemon Black and White. I know for some of you that Akira meme just happened.
Leave me alone!
Now, this certainly isn't an independent art piece. There's a big company behind it, but that's not important right now. Give me a second. As a kid, that game felt so incredibly alive. The graphics are merely little 2D sprites and half the map is quite empty. Even the biggest city in the game is but a few black reflective cubes with maybe 20 NPCs standing around. But it was here that I first came across this realization that there is really no correlation between the size or realism of a game and how it makes you feel. There is this one specific moment in the game which does exactly what I talked about. The entire gameplay, you look down from this orthographic perspective. But once you enter the Sky Arrow Bridge, this happens. The entire perspective changes. It's little details like that, these little special moments that someone thought of. It wasn't necessary, it doesn't add anything to the gameplay, but you can feel that it has a soul, and more often than not, that's the only thing that is important nowadays. This moment stood out because it subverted your expectations of what the game was, and it worked because it gave you just enough to complete the rest inside your head, to make the world feel even bigger and more beautiful than it actually was. The creators gave us enough story space. And maybe that's exactly why these moments work. Big productions can afford to make everything a spectacle. The biggest blockbusters nowadays spend up to $40,000 a second on a feature film. But for you, when you're making something, you have to be resourceful. As an independent creator, it is your task to decide which moments deserve that care and attention. If you're gonna make a film and that special moment comes in your story, it's gonna stand out so much more than the rest of it. It's gonna be your little spark, your extra mile, and the audience will feel it because it's personal to you. And I think that's what we're after. We're not looking for perfection anymore, and maybe we never looked for it in the first place. But we're understanding that the art we interact with comes from real people, and the clearer the soul at the center of every art piece is, the easier we connect with it. With more and more content trying to grab our attention for literally every single waking hour of our day and AI flooding the internet, we're gonna look more for a sense of humanity and real connection, something we're so void of nowadays. Technical perfection isn't important anymore, it's having a soul and have your work make that clear. Everyone can make a pretty picture nowadays, but only those who can see beyond this superficial facade will also get to tell a great story along with it. And who knows, the next cult classic could be made from your bedroom. And it's not even that unlikely. So, what are you waiting for? Come on, do something. Do something. Subscribe in the meantime, and then you make The Godfather Part 4? Is it 4? What part are you on? 5? Are we at Godfather Part 5 already?